Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Truth Wanted. I am your host tonight, Objectively Dan, and this is the live call-in show where we talk about what people believe and why, Fridays at 7 p.m. Central. And every single week, I always have a special guest. This week is no different. It's also host of Truth Wanted, ExXtian Erin. Well, hello,
Hi.
Erin. How are you?
I'm good. I was just trying to decide whether I should wear the naughty side or the nice side. I don't know.
You got two sides to you. That's interesting. I didn't realize there was I only saw the naughty part before. Now you got both sides to that. That's cool. Well, Erin, the reason why you're wearing a Santa hat, and I've got kind of a Christmas tree in the background, you can see, is because it's Christmas time, and we're just going to call this the Christmas show for Truth Wanted anyway, because for the next 2 weeks, we are going to be not doing any live shows because next Friday is Christmas Eve. And then the Friday after that is New Year's Eve. So, the crew and everybody else, they kind of don't want to do stuff. They want to have fun. So we're going to let them have fun. But that doesn't mean we're not going to be doing any programs. We're actually going to be doing some special pre-recorded stuff. Those of you who are new to the ACA should know that every year around during the holidays, we usually have some pre-recorded stuff that we do just so that you have some content to watch/listen to while you're hanging out with your family and or friends at the holidays, which comes to our topic today of what I wanted to talk about, Erin, is I want to talk about family. I want to talk about this time of year because this time of year is really, really hard if you're a non-believer. I would argue it might be the hardest. I mean, Easter would be a runner-up, but I think people just do the Christmas thing more than Easter. And of course, I'm talking about for our fellow ex-Christians here specifically. If you come from that background, if only for the fact that, it's the most popular holiday in the United States, certainly in Canada, certainly in other parts of the world. So it's the biggest deal Christians make around this time. And it's kind of hard, especially if you come from that background, to kind of figure out what do you do now? Because I'm not celebrating the birth of Jesus Christ when I'm giving my parents gifts for Christmas anymore. That part doesn't matter. But there's still a lot of these traditions. There's still a lot of this discourse that happens around the holidays, and it can get kind of messy. And so, Erin, I'm glad that you are here with me this time because I wanted us to kind of have a show of reflection on that, but also because you had an experience recently that I think a lot of us can relate to, and a lot of us could really hear to get some comfort out of, if only for some solidarity. So I was hoping you can kind of talk about what happened.
Yeah, we talked about how I was going to share this a little bit. So this is going to be my third year, I guess, as an atheist for Christmas. And in past years, I've really enjoyed. Actually, I think I've enjoyed Christmas more over the last few years. I felt like I was able to get more into just making the fun parts of it, like the gift giving and just enjoying whatever, like hot chocolate outside, looking at the lights. But this year does feel a little different for me. This is the first year that I am somewhat estranged from my family. So it definitely feels a lot different this year. Just knowing that there's a disconnection there and knowing that there are so many other people too that are experiencing that right now, whether it's a full on everybody knows what's going on, and there's just a discomfort there, or whether their family has cut you out of their lives, or maybe you've cut them out of your life. Maybe it's temporary, maybe it's more permanent. This is the first year I've experienced a little bit of disconnection that way. So I'm definitely feeling different this year for Christmas. I am focused on, like, so I'm a mom. I've got 2 little kids. So I'm focusing a lot this year on spending all of my time and energy with my kids and making it really fun for them. This is also the first year where maybe there's less communication going on, even just about what kind of stuff I would have been invited to in previous years, even though it didn't mean the same thing to me. Not even really knowing what's going on as far as like the Christian part of the holiday. So this is probably the first time that that's really not even on my radar. And it's different. It's different. It's hard.
So I kind of want you to speak to this and obviously talk about this as, you know, to the degree of comfort that you're able to talk about. But recently your family kind of figured out not only that you're an atheist, I think they knew that, but that you're an activist. Like, you're online talking about stuff. And a family member of yours saw a video of yours and shared it with other family members. And then, you know, stuff kind of happened from there. So maybe if you could pick it up and kind of tell us what happened.
Yeah, to be completely honest, I don't actually know the full story of what happened. I have been doing activism like type projects for the last, I guess it'll be coming up on 2 years here pretty soon. Sharing my story on Twitter, and then eventually people asking me to come on their channels doing interviews, and then eventually coming on Truth Wanted and starting all this. So it was kind of a gradual slide into activism, and it's been such a great experience for me. But I think there was part of it that I wasn't quite ready to share with everybody, even though I know I put my face out there, and obviously I knew that it would all come to, like, everybody would find out everything. And I felt really comfortable with that idea for a really long time. But I think I've been given some kind of phrasing to put on this. I think that maybe not getting ahead of that, being able to present it the way that I was hoping to, has kind of backfired in a way, because I had no control over what was the very first thing that they saw. And I honestly don't know if they've watched everything. So it's kind of like maybe getting just a very small portion of the story. And it ended up being extremely hurtful to them. It's been...
So what was their response specifically when they found out?
The response was just kind of, this is incredibly hurtful, and we need to take some space. And I actually, like, I understand that. I always knew that being critical of something that is so important to the identity of people that I love, it was going to be hurtful. I think hoping that maybe that the whole picture would come forward a little bit more, but that's not what happened. And so it's been traumatic, I'm sure, for them. It's been very traumatic to learn all this, like, everything's changed so much. So I think there was not a lot of conversation at first, and then eventually there's kind of like, we just need some space from you. And so with the exception of a few conversations, that's pretty much where we're at still.
And so now they're not even inviting you to hang out during the holidays.
No, there's all the kind of other things that had nothing kind of to do with Christianity. Obviously, it's your family, the little things like the text messaging, the sending each other things that are funny, all of those connections kind of get severed when there's something like this that happens. So even it's just the weird things that you don't expect to be missing so much. I think that's what's been the hardest, is that you lose out on that kind of just that social support that you have with people when they're really quite upset with you. And then, of course, like, when there's a disconnection there, you start to question yourself a lot too. So it's been it's been a few months, and you do spend a lot of time kind of evaluating, like, what have I done? At times I've thought, like, I wish I could take it all back, but then the very next minute I'm like, no, like, everything that has happened, like, I've grown a lot as a person. I've met so many wonderful people, and I've looked over the things that I've put on the internet, and I still feel that way for the most part. Everything that I've really said so far, I'm not to say that I haven't grown and changed my opinions, but I see that all as part of my story. And I kind of did go a little bit quiet online for a little while, because I just wasn't quite sure how to move forward. And then I did mention it recently that like it's been kind of hard lately. And I was just inundated with messages from real true friends that I've made since doing this. Either through online forum type like things like friends that are specifically just online, and friends that I've gotten to know in other ways too. So phone calls, text messages, video calls, just to check in, and that was the big reminder for me of like why this has been such an important journey for me, and why I have continued to kind of move forward in speaking about this and continuing to try to like bring more conversation and make other people know that this what I'm experiencing is not unique in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
maybe I'm just the one who put my face on it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's like, if you asked me if I had any regrets about doing any of this stuff, I would tell you no. I feel the same as you, though. I wish when it came to my family and when it came to the people I knew, I wish I could have told that story to them myself. But I waited a long time, and eventually it got to them from people that weren't me, right, in a very similar light. And so like I didn't have control over that story. It stopped becoming my story. Suddenly it became a different story. And that story was, oh, well, Dan has fallen prey to these people. He's not himself. He's being used. Any kinds of stuff you can make up, whatever. I just want to sin. Any of those kinds of things that you typically hear were suddenly the stories that people got from me. And that's something I guess I do regret in that sense. But at the same time, I don't know if it could have really gone too differently in the sense of them accepting that. Because as you said, it can be traumatic when you understand that somebody you love actually has this almost hidden life or hidden beliefs about the world. And I think it's hard for people to understand why they hide that. I know it was hard for my parents in particular. They didn't know why I was kind of keeping this from them, because it's like I know that it's hard to understand, because like the reason why I'm here is because I went through this whole journey and that you're just seeing the end result of that.
Yeah.
You're not getting to see that whole process, so of course you're not going to be able to understand it. It's really difficult, on top of the fact that we're just talking about stuff that society really just tells us not to talk about, right? I mean, like, we're going against the mainstream culture. We're saying that this thing that people have believed for thousands of years is wrong. And that's controversial, to say the least, right? So
yeah,
it's hard, Erin. And I'm just really grateful that I get to know you. I think you're an incredibly brave person. I think you're really wonderful. And I'm so glad that at least here at Truth Wanted, I get to call you my family and we get to hang out together, because I don't think it's right for them to do that. And like if my mother became a pagan, doesn't mean I'm not going to spend Christmas with her. I don't know. There's something about Christianity, or at least fundamentalist Christianity, that says you can't associate with people that don't think the same as you, and that's such a harsh belief to have. It's really sad, really, really sad. But anyway, how are you processing things now that things have kind of lifted? Do you feel a sense of relief at all? Do you think that there's any good that's come from this?
Yeah. Yes and no. Obviously, yes and no. Thank you for saying that, by the way. Got me choked up a little bit. I did want to say, like, one thing before I go, is that what you said about that too, that idea that we kind of are like have this secret life. Like I when I think back onto the last 2 years, I don't think I could have done it very differently either, because the first few months, like, I had some stuff I needed to process, and I needed to find people I needed to process that with. And my next phase was I needed to meet just a single person that felt like me. I think if I had gone straight to family, I thought I probably would have said even more hurtful things. And so part of it is like this, I'm not quite ready. But now I don't really know what's a good time. I'm also going to be considering things like the theology that I know that they're a part of. COVID and all that really throws a wrench into it too, because that also complicates it, because there's obviously different views about what's going on in the world outside of what I was raised with, because there wasn't a pandemic growing up. So, but there is a sense of relief knowing that as much as sometimes I would like to kind of go back and be able to just put on that mask again, kind of just to be like, let's just go back to normal for like a day, and I will go back and be my kind of small Christian self, but at the same time knowing now that I have kind of like this space now that I've created for myself because I've done this work to create a space for my voice. So I'm hoping that, I mean, I don't know how things are going to fall over the next few years, but knowing that I have broken that idea that I am this small person that doesn't have opinions about things, there is something like freeing about that, and that I'm kind of declaring this space to exist in the way that is healthy for me. So that will be something I am looking forward to one day, even if things continue to be strained with them, knowing that because I'm not trying to hide anything from them, I don't also have to hide anything from people that I meet going forward. So new friends I make, I can start off on this very honest and authentic step, like this, from a place of authenticity now. So that's kind of one of my goals going forward, is to continue to kind of carve out this path for myself in a very honest way, because I think that was one of the things that was really hurting me, was this feeling of being very disingenuine long before I became an atheist. Just feeling like I had to be something that I wasn't.
Right. That's something that's so attractive about being in the space that we occupy, is that you can really be yourself, like in more ways than one. Like, you want to dye your hair 3 different colors? Yeah, go ahead. We're going to say cool. You know, you want to like go do something crazy. I mean, like, you know, it's a space that, at least the space that I grew up with, was not open to that kind of stuff, especially, you know, people who can relate to that, and fundamentalist Christianity, at least. There was not a space for doubt in your belief. It was a complete shunning, at least in my community. You know, other belief communities, there may be some room for those kinds of conversations, but for where I came from, that was just not a thing. You couldn't question it, and if you did ask questions, you had to ask very carefully. You had to ask
and come around to get the right answer.
Right. Exactly. And there's always, you have to ask questions in a way that are going to lead you to the answers that they want to give you. You know what I mean? And that sucks. But, you know, you mentioned this cultivation of space, and I think that's really important. And I'm really glad, Erin, it sounds like, you know, at least with someone who has kids, your kids won't have to do that with their parents. It sounds like that you want to be able to create that space for them too, which is really nice. I think that's something that happens, you know, with the change in generation. But,
the idea of celebrating your individuality, it's become really apparent to me again, like, because I've not been a Christian since, I guess it's like since 2019, so it's been a few years, and realizing that as much as I kind of thought I could kind of stay the same, I have changed so much because I've gone through this whole process, and I've learned so much about myself, and I'm a part of a community that celebrates that. The more you know, find out who you are, like you had said, like you can have your own style. There's a space for it, and then to kind of go back to the space for remembering what the expectation was kind of on me. And seeing how different it actually is now. So I do hope to like keep going forward in this space that I'm celebrating other people's individuality, and I'm raising my kids in a way where they feel like they have space to, you know, learn and be really curious. That's a thing I am always really, that's probably one of my like statements I make with my kids a lot, is like, this is a space for curiosity. You can ask me questions. Like this is what being a kid is about, is there's no like things off limits when you're learning and you're a kid. Like obviously there's gonna be age appropriate answers, but so that part's also really exciting for me. And so those are the things I'm kind of holding on to.
You know, it's interesting too, because I think your family had a similar reaction with my family, is that they watched like 10 minutes of me and then just like kind of made that judgment. I don't think they've watched too much of my stuff since. I think that's so sad, because, you know, I grew up in Christianity for 20 years. I gave that 20 years of a chance, and they couldn't give me 10 minutes of a chance. And I don't know what that says about somebody. I don't know what that says about the kind of ideology that you grew up in, where you think you already have the truth, you think you already know what you're talking about, so you can't even give other people a chance to kind of express themselves or even try to figure themselves out. I think that's maybe the saddest part of it all, because it stifles your curiosity in a way. It kind of just says you don't have to do the work. The work's already been done for you. But since I've been, deconstructing and started that path, like, I've found so many new avenues of knowledge and just like cool domains of thought that I would have never even considered or really cared about as a Christian, because I was told I didn't have to really care about these things. And I don't know. I wish that was shared amongst the believers that I know. I wish that they were able to be more open to that, because that difference between being open-minded and closed-minded, it really shows, especially when it comes to, I don't know, stuff like this, where we're kind of here and just saying like, yeah, this is it. This is the only life we've got. This is the sense of community we have to have, because going to church doesn't make sense anymore. It's kind of self-built, the world that we've created here now, and it has its downsides to that too. But I'm really glad that it gets to be, I don't know, this space gets to be something that we ultimately decide the fate of, not what a God decides or a pope decides or a church leader. It's up to us as people, and I think that's pretty nice. But this is getting really heavy. I think we should go to some calls, and if your calls are heavy tonight too, folks, that's okay. We want to talk to you guys. We want to talk about your experiences. But this is a tough time of the year for a lot of us, a very pensive time, very reflective time, but also a time where things can get really, really spicy between family. So if you want to just vent that tonight, you call in about it, definitely come talk to us. We're here to talk to you. If you are having doubts, you want to talk to us about it, we'd like to do that. If you think you're a Christian, you're right, and that we're on the wrong path, hey, we'll talk to you too. But that's what we want to talk about mostly tonight. At least that's our primary focus. So we're going to get to some calls. But before we do that, we have to thank our lovely patrons of the week. Every single week, we have really fantastic people that help donate to this show. Truth Wanted is a product of the atheist community of Austin, meaning all the donations go towards the show. Aaron doesn't get that money. I don't get that money. It all goes towards the community and doing cool stuff with it. So thank you to everyone who donates on patreon.com/truthwanted. Or TW actually is the URL there. So I want to thank this week's patron. So this week's patron of the week is Amy Pettit. Thank you so much, Amy, for donating. And folks, I think we have actually reached our limit as far as new patrons. So next time we do a show, we will have to cycle through some of our older ones, which is totally fine. I love giving shout outs, but if we want to get some new people, we always love having new people that we can shout out to donate to the show. So if you're feeling generous this holiday season and want to help us out instead of like, I don't know, the Salvation Army or something, hey, we would appreciate it. And it's always better to give than to receive, right? I think that's a thing. So anyway, we would love it if you guys would do that. Thank you so much to everyone who donates on our Patreon. You guys rock. And now we're going to go to some callers. Erin, are you ready to take some of these calls?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. Let's see. We've got a couple of different people here. I want to talk to Jayna, who's calling in from Oregon. Jayna, you're live on Truth Wanted. What's up?
Hi, Erin. Hi, Dan. It's good to talk to you.
Hello.
Hey.
Fun, maybe a little lighter topic, but I am a former Christian, and I've been hurt a lot by like gotcha verses. Like people have used to, like, oh, you think this? Well, actually, the Bible says this. So I thought it'd be kind of a fun little mental challenge to think, if there was one verse that you could just remove from the Bible, never have been in there, what would you pick?
So, like, I guess remove from the Bible because it personally annoys me. Is that the criteria here?
That could be one, or like it has like a doctrine built around it or something.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, that's such an interesting question. I've never been asked that before. Oh, what do
I kind of
pick?
have a thought right off the bat, and I know there's going to be bigger, more theologically heavy ones, but the one that came to my mind, because I'll give you my quick answer, is the verses where in the New Testament where Paul talks about your body being a temple and that your body is not your own. Do you know which verse that I'm talking about?
Yes. Yes.
And I think that came up just immediately for me, because I think that was the one that caused me some of the most damage, because it's this kind of like this idea that like you're not allowed to be a part of your body. Like there's like this sense that you need to kind of be separate from that, and it's the extreme dualism of that I think causes a lot of issues for people on a emotional level and on a psychological level and a sexual level as well. So that's probably that's my first thought, but I'm sure there's other ones that are more violent that I would take out.
I got one for you. 1 Timothy 2:12, which is, and I had to look up the wording of it, but I suffer not a woman to teach, nor to usurp her authority over the man, but to be in silence.
Yes.
And there's like I think another one.
I almost said that one.
Yeah, there's another one in Romans where I think it's Romans where Paul talks about how the woman belongs to the man and the body is for God, all this kind of stuff. And like those couple verses alone have fueled so much misogyny over literally centuries. It is crazy to think about the ramifications of this dude just writing some letters to some churches ended up being the basis of like a hierarchy of sexism for generations. It is absurd how much that's contributed. So
imagine starting a religion over someone's blog. Like
it's true.
It's crazy.
Those are the ones that come to mind. But there's also, I don't know, I think the ones that have like serious ramifications like that would probably be my pick. What's your pick, Jayna? Do you have one?
Yeah, there's a couple that I think are pretty interesting that would be good. I think the petty one is like, the fool has said in his heart there is no God. I mean, that's just for pettiness.
That is a petty verse. You're right.
I think all scripture is breathed out by God. That one would be probably a really good one to remove, because I think it causes a lot of justification unnecessarily. Even though the book wasn't even written by Paul, it obviously came later, but people still use it.
Right.
But also, I have one other one, which is so I'm trans, and I think just like he created the male and female, I would just really like to get rid of that one, just to remove that like basis of the doctrine, or maybe like one of the homosexuality verses or something.
Those are good choices. I'm also thinking any of the ones that say you can't be saved but through the sacrifice of Jesus. Like, surprisingly, people think that that's like a running theme in the whole New Testament. Like, there's actually only like very specific verses that point to that. Actually, that's not. Well, it depends. It depends on how you interpret the Bible. If you're looking at the Gospel of John versus some other Gospels, there's different emphasis on the satorology is the proper way for it, right? The actual how the Savior functions. But like any ones that say you can't be saved unless it's through Jesus, because wars have been started over that. Like people died because of that one. That one is one that comes to mind. But yeah, being created male and female, that's also had some really bad effects for the trans community and other communities as well. So that's not great. Great.
I had to argue with someone the other day about this, about how the Bible doesn't explain if God created people. It doesn't explain the full nature of like how people are created. Like it's just totally not inclusive in that way. And somebody had mentioned like, well, why would that be important? And it was like the creator of all things obviously missed out on explaining to a huge group of people how they were created. So like there's however many percentages of people that throughout the ages that have come through these religions and had no representation in the Bible. Like that part was like, it's kind of crazy to me when I think about how hard that would be.
That's true. I mean, I guess because there's no explanation, right? It's just magic.
Yeah. But like there was people obviously born like sexual spectrums have been around forever. And there's been obviously, so I think that's bizarre to me. It's always been really bizarre to me that was one of the things that caused me to doubt, actually.
And how many verses have been like specific? I mean, you can make an argument that Christianity helped start parts of the scientific revolution there's something to be said there, but like if you're talking about in a modern context, if we're talking about like how the fucking creationist museums exist only because there's specific verses in the Bible that say that the earth is like 6,000 years old. Like if it weren't for if for one guy like a couple centuries ago didn't write that and wrote something else, these institutions wouldn't even exist. Like that's fucking crazy to think about. But people can't accept the idea that we came from we're of natural origins because it ruins the whole narrative, doesn't it, about everything that we do. So yeah, there's a lot of verses that we can pick out, I suppose.
And that was kind of like my idea behind this is like it's very interesting to point out that like some doctrines really have very little substance to them, and like I actually was reminded when you were talking, Dan, I believe the Trinity has exactly one verse that supports it. So that whole doctrine wouldn't even exist with that one verse missing.
Right. Well, the word Trinity doesn't even specifically appear. That's an interesting thing. And like, you know, we obviously have an emphasis in our culture of like sola scriptura, which is just Bible alone. But like before Martin Luther and before like a bunch of these folks were coming around and kind of changed that, like it was really whatever the church said was in there, like was true, right? We're talking about the Catholic Church. So, I mean, there's all kinds of extra stuff that we could even deconstruct. That the Bible has really little to no part in.
It seems kind of unclear.
Yeah.
Like it. I could be wrong, but it seems like it's a really confusing message.
It's not a great system. You know, if I was God, I would kind of think that maybe I would have designed the book a bit differently. Maybe it would be
make it shorter, make it more concise.
Definitely a table of contents.
Or maybe amendable. Maybe amendable
a list of authors, and we know the real authors, and not like the fake ones. But you know, well, what do I know, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, Jayna, that's a great call. I like that question. I've never been asked that before. And I guess there's a lot I would remove, but there's definitely some critical ones. So I hope your holiday season is going good this year, Jayna. Thanks so much for your call, and hope to hear from you again.
Yeah, thanks.
It was nice. I like that call. Definitely a bit lighter in tone, although it does kind of go back to the problem, isn't it? Which is the Bible's caused a lot of issues, like in the world, hasn't it?
Yeah. As soon as they said my first pick, I'm like, oh, but there's a better one. Oh, I have another one that I would say. Like there's
if
I could do like my top.
Day,
exactly.
You can find like 500 of these, right? Like, definitely. Definitely. Okay, so we have some other people who want to talk to us. I want to talk to Sunil. Sunil is calling in from Ohio. Sunil, you're live on Truth Wanted. What's up?
Hey, how's it going? Very nice to speak to you.
Nice to speak to you too. How can we help?
Yeah, sure. Well, my question is, especially with all the January 6th stuff going on right now, I know some people will ask me, it's been a little while, but they'll say, Sunil, do you trust the government? I've always kind of felt that was a very overgeneralized question. I mean, I suppose I trust the CDC, but I certainly don't trust Donald Trump. But just kind of wondered what your thoughts are. I feel like there's something wrong with that question when someone says, do you trust the government? It's like, there's something like very, I guess, like I said, very blanketed or overgeneralized about it. Just, I know you're a pretty thoughtful person and think things through. I'll shut up and let you talk.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, Sunil. I mean, obviously, everybody has a right to their opinions on this stuff, but like, I think that like, you're right. A blanket statement of "Do you trust the government?" What does that even mean? Are you talking about the mayor? Or are you talking about the president? Like that could mean so many different things. And when you talk about institutions like the CDC, those are structurally very different from, say, democratic institutions that are set up. The CDC is not a democratic institution or a republic institution in the traditional sense of like the public is not voting on who is on the leadership of the CDC. That's a direct appointment of whoever is in charge of the federal government at that time, who is making those kinds of appointments. And so our government is very complex. The United States government is very complex. People who are politicians who actually practice it don't even understand how these systems work. And I'm not going to name names, but you know who I'm talking about. There's definitely several people that you could talk about. But, as far as do I trust it? That's almost so general to be meaningless. I don't know. I definitely trust certain ideas to be more effective than other kinds of ideas. I'd rather trust a policymaker who says that they want to base their policies based on academic research or stuff that's worked before, rather than ideas that don't work. But ultimately, our institutions are run by people, and so they are to be suspect, I guess, is what I would end that sentence at. Erin, what do you think?
Well, I think like the point that he was asking is like what do we think of questions like these? I think that these questions are generally way too broad. So I would ask for qualifiers, like trust the government how or in what way, which government. I'm Canadian, so when somebody asks me if I trust the government, I need to know what country we're talking about.
Well, I definitely don't trust the Canadian government, Erin. I just want to let you know, you guys are just a mining corporation in disguise.
Yeah,
and that is my stance. But
I think it's always good to like, get a little bit more qualification or qualifiers. I mean, in questions like this, because this is a very weighted topic, and I think that there's a lot of good reason to think that somebody asking that question is looking to kind of lead the question, lead it in a certain way. So I just clarification, qualifiers, and obviously patience with somebody. If they're bringing up a topic like that, there's probably going to be a little bit of, opinions behind it. So
yeah. Anybody who's asking questions like that probably needs to learn more about how the government works.
Yeah. And like maybe even asking like, well, maybe there's something that they are interested in talking about. And like I have had this conversation with people on Canadian government before. And I think that for people, I know people who don't trust the Canadian government legitimately. And I actually think that they've got some like very valid reasons of why they have concerns. Well, and so the point that I'm saying is that I don't think that even the person thinking that way would say that they don't trust as a blanket statement either. So adding qualifications and understanding what is the nuance here and what is the background here, because I also don't want to be judgmental towards somebody who has that thought right off the bat either. So
there's a lot of reasons not to trust the government in any point in time in history. There's tons of reasons, but there's good reasons and there's bad reasons. Yeah. And I think when people like talk about this, they're afraid that, oh, you must be a conspiracy theorist because you think the government's secretly doing this and that. It's like, no, you can point to real specific actions that have happened in history with just the CIA, for example, like doing stuff in other countries and influencing politics there and overthrowing dictatorships to install their own dictatorships. Like that's just a historical fact. But, we have evidence of that now. You can point to documentation. You can point to eyewitnesses. You can point to people who can talk about that. We don't have any eyewitnesses of lizard people yet. But, that could change. We'll see. But there is a difference there, right? Anyway, we've talked a lot, Sunil. What do you think?
Sure. Yeah, I appreciate everything you guys have said. I think really the takeaway is it's that simple. It's just too broad of a question to have a black and white answer. It's just not that simple. Yeah, like you said, what government? Who are you talking about? The guy I'm thinking of in particular who asked me this, he is an Alex Jones fan and one of those. So, but anyway, that's you've given me some good answers. So I definitely appreciate your time.
Thank you, Sunil. Yeah. Thanks so much. It is important to talk about these kinds of things, and oh my goodness, I could talk a lot about Alex Jones and that crowd in particular about what they think, because we have this conversation a lot, which is this talk about skepticism, like blanket skepticism isn't useful unless there's a methodology behind it, right? Like unless you're using specific tools of reasoning, unless you can point to a process by which why you're skeptical of something, then just saying I don't trust it just because I don't trust it, that doesn't mean anything. That's not useful really to anybody, right? But anyway, did you have any thoughts, Erin?
No, I think you answered that better than I did. I was just thinking about I'm immediately jumping to the conversations that I've had and how these are intense conversations, right? And people come at it from all different angles. And I've had conversations where there's an assumption that because I voted a certain way that I am for everything that government has ever done.
Right.
Or, something like that. So it's really, really carefully pulling apart the nuance, and just, I don't know, these topics are complicated, and I think the questions too broad and the answers are not black and white. There's definitely a lot of nuance in that.
Right.
And it's an opportunity to get to know the person that you're talking to, right? Like, so
yeah.
Some of the times it comes up as a government question, and like maybe now I'm making a broad statement, but like I feel like there's a lot sometimes going on personally with why that person has come to that conclusion too. So using that as an opportunity to use some street epistemology maybe, or like inquisitive and patient questions to like kind of see why have they come at it from this side, and looking at where their source is and then going into that too. But
yes, especially in a country like the US, where you have a population of about 330 million people, and you only have two primary parties that are supposed to represent the interests of all people. Of course, they're not going to get everybody's interests. So the people that I have voted for, I've definitely not supported all of my interests, but it's almost like it's more than not, like that's kind of what you have to work with. And that sucks. And that's not good. And it's definitely something that needs to be fixed. But it kind of working on that, I hope.
It kind of does seem like a like when we talk a lot about like black and white thinking and like us versus them, and just that dichotomy, it seems like it would be even harder to weigh through when you've got that kind of system. Just speaking from somebody who's not, I should not talk about American politics. I am not American, but in Canada we have multiple parties, and so it's a lot easier to not know how your neighbor votes or how your sibling votes, because there's more options, and so there's a little bit more conversation to be had right off the bat. So, and then also the problem, and then if you try to vote ideologically, at least in the United States, you try to vote for the party that best represents you, you're also giving your vote almost away, because you're not supporting the bigger parties that inevitably win anyways. It's like a catch-22. You can't win either way. It really sucks. Hey, enough about politics. I think, Erin, we should go to our cool promo that we've got set up. What do you think? Yeah. All right, let's do it.
Be the porn you want to see in the world might be my new favorite catchphrase. I'm going to see if I can't get that done up on a t-shirt or whatever else.
Biblically, you have methodologically presupposed the divinity of our biblical Christological God within your start premise.
Biblically, I'm going to drop this call, because biblically, I'm getting tired of this conversation.
Yeah. Just because I have a penis or something doesn't mean that you could prescribe that I ought to not have long hair, or I shouldn't paint my nails categorically.
You're a fertile field that we would love to plow.
Alex, Johnny wants to plow you, but he might need to plow you further in a different show.
I don't know what you missed in science class, but if you think that vaccines just don't work, then you are no longer in touch with reality.
I wonder if he believes in what the experts say about gravity, or is he jumping off buildings? I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Last week, there was some frustrating calls. I'm not going to lie. It was like a definitely more frustrating episode, Truth Wanted, which I don't enjoy. But it happens.
Biblically tired. Hey?
I was biblically tired, and I also used the Bible. Anyway, it was a whole thing. You should go watch that conversation if you haven't already. It was nuts. But what isn't nuts on this show? Speaking of nuts, let's go to our next caller. Just kidding. My next caller is nuts. I don't know that. We're going to talk to Christian, who is calling in from Australia. Christian, you are live on Truth Wanted. What's up?
Biblically, neither of you can destroy our biblical Christological God.
Oh shit, he's back. It's literally him. I didn't even realize it was him. Wow, just straight from the promo. That's awesome. I'm gonna mute you for right now. I don't know if I want to engage in this conversation. I feel like I talked to you last week. I feel like I gave you a challenge, which was to talk about the verse in First Judges, which talks about God being defeated by iron chariots. But I don't know if you actually gave a response to that, because you said that God couldn't be defeated. I believe that was your main claim. And according to First Judges, the Israelites ran away because of, that. So if you want to answer that, you can. I've unmuted you now.
Biblically, you're presupposing the divinity of our biblical Christological God within your starting premise as you are discussing about the Bible. So you have presupposed the canonicity of our biblical Christological worldview. So my brute fact still stands, is that neither of you can destroy our biblical Christological God. What's thy response to that brute fact?
Biblical. Sorry, I missed that word.
I know it's so. I think he's saying we can't destroy God. We can't destroy God. I don't think I can destroy something that doesn't exist. I think you have to prove that he exists first. I don't know.
Biblically, you have presupposed the divinity of our biblical Christological God because you referred to God with the pronoun he, and because exist is a verb.
Wait a minute. So I said, wait a minute. Whoa, no, stop right there. I said the pronoun he, and that means no. We are not doing this. I said the pronoun he, and that means I recognize the divinity of God. What are you talking about? No.
So if I call you, can I make you a god now too, Dan? If I call you, Dan, you are great. I think that How can I use it in a sentence?
Just say I'm he. Just call me he, and that means that I'm God. I guess. Wait, what is going on, Christian? I'm gonna let you talk again. But here's the thing: you have to have a real conversation with us. If you repeat this same stuff over and over again, I am going to drop you. So that's a brute fact that you can deal with, okay? But you need to talk with us and actually respond with us, okay? Can you demonstrate the existence of God? And not because I say the word he or any nonsense like that. Can you actually demonstrate God? Can we start there?
Biblically, am I unmuted?
Are you really going to keep doing the biblically thing? Yes, you're unmuted.
Being heard? Okay.
Yes.
Biblically, when you use a proper noun God, you have to cross-reference said proper noun to the pure actuality of our biblical Christological God.
No, I don't.
Your presupposition, you use the word exist. Exist is a verb. A verb is a doing word. So because our biblical Christological God doesn't do a specific thing, that's not a defeater. So my brute fact still stands, is that neither of you can destroy our biblical Christological God.
You're talking about this is a criticism of English grammar. This isn't a criticism about reality, right? I don't care how exists and verbs typically function in a sentence. That doesn't. You've still yet to demonstrate why I should believe in God. That's what I really want to know. Why should I believe in God over any other kind of God claim, or even the claim that God doesn't exist? There's some people that even go that far. What is going to bring me to your position?
Biblically, you're still contradicting yourself because your starting premise presupposes the divinity of our biblical Christological God.
No, I don't. I don't presuppose the divinity. You're saying that he's divine. I don't believe that.
Biblically, you have allow me to finish. So this comports of Romans 1:20. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power, and the have included
Christian.
Understood.
You're not answering our question. You're really just avoiding it entirely. I'm not presupposing anything, Christian. You are presupposing that I'm presupposing. I'm not presupposing anything. I have no claims to God. I have absolutely no claims. I make nothing of his divinity. I say nothing. I don't even say anything. Well, I don't think the Christian God exists. But if we're talking about like God claims in general, like big, little G God, well, not little G, big G God, like nature or something. I'm not going to deny like nature. We're not even going that far. We're just talking about Yahweh here. I just want to know how you know Yahweh exists. How do you know that, Christian? And how am I supposed to know that? How do I get there? Show me the path.
Biblically, every time.
Can we have a conversation without you saying biblically? I'm going to be honest with you. It's annoying me. I am going to interrupt you. I absolutely am, because you're annoying the heck out of me, Christian. If you want to talk to me, you got to stop with the biblically crap. Seriously, talk like a person, please. My goodness. All right, you're back on. Please give your response. If you say biblically again, I will drop you. Full stop. Go ahead.
Christologically, when you use the proper noun God, you have to cross-reference said proper noun to the actor's
No, you don't. I'm dropping
don't
this
give a
call.
like,
you don't have to cross-reference fucking shit. What is this, an MLA
I don't
paper?
give a shit about this.
What is happening? Look,
is it only like with the English language too that we're presupposing this?
I know.
Like,
listen, I could dance with this guy all day, honestly, but like we're not gonna get anywhere. You know, like biblically, we're not gonna get anywhere. I first of all, I cannot believe we just talked to him right after the promo.
That's really funny.
That is
yeah.
fucking hilarious. But also, like, you know, I feel guilty whenever stuff like this happens because we always stress that we want to have like real meaningful dialogue with people, and we always want to be patient, and we always want to try to be kind with these conversations. And I still believe in that, and I still think that's true. But like, there's no conversation happening here, right? This is somebody who wants to call in, who just wants to be right. That's it, and who isn't addressing us in any meaningful way. In other words, I don't think the interlocutor is interacting with us in good faith. I think you have to have good faith in these conversations. And I think that there's no systematic way to tell whether someone's having good faith or not, but I think that there's some indicators. I think there's pretty obvious indicators here, right? So I don't know. Biblically, Christologically, this is driving me crazy. What, English grammar does not have to conform to God in any meaningful way. If you think that God exists, you have to tell me why. You don't have to presuppose anything.
Yeah, and like that, doesn't he's presupposing that like the English language somehow proves like because aren't there languages around the world that don't use like they have different types of pronouns or whatever he was saying. Right. Like it just doesn't make any sense to me. Hebrew was a different language completely too. There was like a totally different sentence structure. I don't know. Yeah. If he's gonna base it back on that.
I have no idea.
I kind of get what he was saying, like where he was going, but that's like they're like, where do you go from? That's not a conversation. That's just put that on a plaque and put it on your wall because it makes you happy saying that over and over again.
Right. And if you have a worldview that says, well, they've presupposed these things, so that's why they're wrong. Like you don't even feel the need to actually engage with somebody because you already know that they're wrong. See, this goes back to this conversation about ideology, right? Like this is an ideology that literally says, I am right, everybody else is wrong. I don't have to listen to anybody else. The only reason why I have to listen to somebody else is to gain social favor so that I can convince them of this truth. Like there's not a back and forth. There's not a dialectic here. It's propaganda. I don't know.
I personally, I've never met anybody who was like even sort of convinced by any presuppositional argument. Like I don't think I've ever met anybody who's even like considering, like I don't know. What testimony do you hear from somebody? It's like, well, this guy got on the internet and he said biblically like 10 times, and then I felt the conviction of God and I became a Christian. Like how does that work? What's the point of that besides your group on Discord or whatever? I don't know. It's frustrating.
Like I said, I always feel bad about dropping people. I don't feel as bad dropping that because we weren't going to go anywhere. It's just going to be us going back and forth of us saying, no, that's not what we're saying. This is what precepts do every time.
Yeah.
They say that we say things that we don't actually say. That is always what happens every single time. Every single time. It never changes. But the call that we had earlier was the removal of a Bible verse, and that was my theologically heavy one that I had in my mind was Romans 1:20 because it makes it impossible to have conversations with people. Right. Because he quoted that one too. And that's like one of the main that's like one of the base verses that they use for presuppositionalism, or that idea that like I'm right and everyone else who disagrees with me is a fool. Right. Also, that this conversation we just had with him literally could not happen pre-Christianity. In other words, like these specifically every presuppositionalist, they're always quoting the Bible. They're always saying these are the verses you have to listen to in order for you to be right about this thing. So if we lived in a time before the scriptures were as widely available as they are today, or even canonized as they were today, if we're just talking about the Jewish faith, even like how could he even argue for God? How would he even do it if he's not quoting some New Testament scripture that says, otherwise? I don't even know if that you could. I mean, maybe you'd pick out some Psalms or something that says, I don't know, that the believers are non-believers are fools or something. I don't know, but it's, oh my gosh. Precepts every time it always works out that way. But anyway, okay. Real quickly, we're gonna get to another caller here. We're gonna talk to Setuf, who is calling in from Spain. Setuf, you are live on Truth Wanted. What's going on?
Hello.
Hello.
I wanted to biblically hear your thoughts on a different violence analogy, if that is biblically okay with you.
Oh my God. I know, first of all, you've called before, so I know you're kidding. But yes, what is the violinist analogy? What is that?
It's the analogy which shows that bodily autonomy justifies abortion, as far as I understand it.
Okay.
Do you know it? Have you heard of it?
I'll be honest, I haven't heard of this. I'd have to look this up. Do you know what's happening, Erin? Do you know?
I'm somewhat familiar with the arguments, yeah,
Okay.
but like not super clear on it. I have heard it once or twice before.
Yeah. So sorry, if you could explain it just a bit more so I can understand it and I don't have to like read an internet article while you're talking to me, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. Well, I was not expecting that, but I actually think that's perfect, because I'm just going to present to you my analogy, and I just want to hear your thoughts, what you think about it, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Okay. If you could be quick, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, awesome. So let's say there's a violinist that wants to have sex with me. And in this hypothetical, I have a condition which can make someone physically depend on my body when I have sex with them. But I don't tell the violinist, okay? So let's say we do have consensual sex, and then it happens that the violinist gets connected to me and depends on my body. So my questions, I've got two questions to that scenario. Your opinion. Would you say I violated the bodily autonomy of the violinist? That's number one. And number two, would you say it's immoral for me to disconnect the violinist without their consent?
Wait, what is it? Is a violinist just a random like job title for that? I'm wondering how the violinist part actually matters to the analogy. Is it just like just a random one for that?
Person?
Yeah, I'm confused.
Yeah, you can just say it's a random person.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, it's never good to give your opinions on moral philosophy scenarios that you've just heard for the very first time live on air, because I will probably not give a great response without giving it a lot of thought.
Yeah.
I think I'd have to hear it again to really wrap my mind around it, because I'm not even sure I fully understand exactly what's happening. So maybe if I repeat it, if you're saying if there's a violinist that wants to have wants to have sex with you, but if you have sex with them, then what are the ramifications? That they could die if they disconnect.
They become
from
connected to you.
Yeah, they lost me at the connection part, because I didn't really understand that.
Okay, I can just repeat it if you like.
Yeah, if you could.
So let's say the violinist wants to have sex with me, and in this hypothetical, I have a condition which can make someone physically depend on my body when I have sex with them. Yeah, but I do not
physically dependent on your body when you have sex with them. Okay, got it.
Yes, there's a risk. It does not always happen, but there's a certain risk that if I have sex with somebody, they will physically depend on my body. They'll be connected to me. Like, let's say they will depend on my kid.
It's like that episode of SpongeBob where SpongeBob connects with Squidward's heart in that one scene. He calls them brothers. Anybody who knows what I'm talking about knows what I'm talking about. But yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I got that. Okay.
That's the scenario. So yeah. So let's say now we do indeed have consensual sex, me and the violinist, and then it happens that they do indeed get connected to me and my body, and they physically depend on my body. So in which instance, if I disconnect them, they will die.
Yeah, that's pretty rough.
Does the violinist, are they made? I'm not even sure how this fits into the scenario, but are they made aware of the fact that they might become connected to your body if they have sex with you consensually? Is that part of?
No, I specifically stated I do not tell the violinist about this condition that I have, so they do not know about this.
Okay. Well, that seems like shouldn't do that. Seems like that would be wrong. But if the analogy here is supposed to be about fetuses, I think that's what that's supposed to be, right? Is somehow the violinist is supposed to be like a fetus, but
the original violinist analogy, yes.
I guess I'm kind of because like you're not, when you have sex with somebody, you're having sex with another person that's like fully grown and well, actually that's not necessarily true. When you have sex with somebody, there could be ramifications of that, and I think people should be careful of that. But I think this comes down to whether or not a fetus is actually aware of anything that's happening when an abortion is taking place, and whether that's actually causing harm. And like that's where you're probably going to find the biggest disagreement. I don't know, Erin. You
yeah, that's kind of what I'm leaning. That's what I'm leaning towards too. Is that like I mean, yeah, we're talking about pregnancy, like yes, I think I'm going in the same space as you are here. I kind of lost my train of thought again here.
Right.
But
so ultimately, it comes down to harm, right? Are you doing active harm? I don't think abortion up to a certain point of time, at least within the first trimester, is actually harming a fetus. If somebody thought it was actually causing harm, there might be some other implications that you'd have to consider there. But I genuinely don't think that's causing harm. So I don't see that as a moral problem. But obviously at a certain point, I don't know. It is.
I remember I was going to say, it's just, I think,
right. I don't know. Yeah.
I think it is disanalogous in that way, because you're talking about two fully adult, you said it, adult consenting people who are fully sentient and have all the abilities to experience harm or pain and all those things. So it's not exactly analogous to a zygote.
Right. Yeah. I think that's going to be the difference there.
That's probably what we're going to be.
Yeah. So Setuf, your thoughts on that?
So yeah, I'm not arguing for zygote rights. I'm arguing for fetus rights, and there's a distinction there. But I don't even want to go into that. I'm just really curious on your thoughts on the analogy, even if it's not analogous. Just as I presented it, would you say I violated the bodily autonomy of the violinist? And would you say it's immoral for me to disconnect the violinist without their consent?
Man, that's so interesting. It's kind of like if you know that you have a sexually transmitted disease and you have sex with someone and you don't tell them about that. That's almost like the scenario that I would compare that to in my mind. And I would say that a moral agent or somebody who has the capacity to know that what their actions have harm on others should prevent themselves from avoiding the consequences of that. I totally as much as possible. That seems to make the most sense to me. But as Erin stated, there may be some disanalogous reasoning there when talking about a fetus. So I think that's a summation of my thoughts. Erin, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I think I'm kind of on the same page as you, Dan. I'm thinking more about the responsibility on the person who has the condition. Not telling the other person that they're signing up for that kind of thing. As far as, I don't know. I would have to go off and think about this a little bit longer too, because I'm failing to see the analogy here, because I know that's what I know. It's analogous towards abortion. So I mean it, and it is a hypothetical question. So I don't know. I would think that I would have to think about that a little bit more. I don't really know, because it seems like a weird thought experiment.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go, Setuf. Thanks so much for calling in with your topic. It's definitely one I haven't heard of, which is interesting. It just tells me that there's more I could probably look into on this particular topic. And I'm glad I'm not the one that has to be. I'm glad this is not specifically like an abortion call-in show or ethics of abortion call-in show. Because I mean, obviously, I have thoughts. I've obviously read about this stuff, but I'm by no means an expert on this particular topic. I just have opinions on things. So if you want to know my opinion, I guess you got it from me. So there you go. Is it the complete work of analysis from a systematic reasoning from logic point A to point B? Nope. But that's just, it's basically, you got my intuitions on it. So hopefully that's worthwhile to you. Excellent. We're going to talk to some more callers on the line. We got Jim, who's calling in from Utah. Jim, what's up?
Hello. Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, of course. How can we help?
I've been wanting to talk about this with somebody for a while, and I guess this is the only place I know where someone could talk with me about this. I'm wondering how you would feel about a class in schools teaching about religion and atheism.
Teaching about atheism. Okay. Oh, go on.
Like world religions, for example.
I mean, like it has to happen at some point in an academic sense, right? Somebody has to teach about it, or if it wasn't allowed to be taught, it's going to be written about in books. I would say that most people probably can't do it. Even people that are really well versed in it, I think there's always inherently going to be a bias. I think if I taught a world religions class, it'd probably be biased. I think I try my best, but that's probably a factor that has to be made or considered in this stuff, right? So I don't know. Do you have specific thoughts about it, Jim? Do you think it shouldn't be a thing?
I'm a little bit surprised by your response. Actually, I thought that you would be strongly opposed to that.
Why do you say that?
I don't know. That's just usually what I hear kind of as a criticism of the atheist community is that they're so against any representation of religion that they wouldn't even want to talk about it, in a school, or they wouldn't want to hear about it.
Your question had mentioned like talking about religions and atheism, and like I think that since it's such a common thing that everybody eventually is faced with, I think that it should be taught, and it should be taught on some sort of comprehensive level, and non-exclusionary. But I do agree with Dan that it's going to be really challenging to find a non-biased thing. But I do think that it's always better to have more information than less.
Yeah, definitely. Like the academic study of religion is important, and I think that's a big distinction, right? I do not think a priest should be teaching.
Yes,
at
that's
a
what I meant by
university.
that too. Yeah.
Right. I don't think someone of the clergy, whether it's any representation of faith, should be in that position. Anybody who's going to be teaching on this should be somebody who is coming in from the outside, from a secular person. Not because I don't think that people who are in the faith wouldn't be knowledgeable, but you're inherently going to have biases. Now, of course, do people of the clergy, can they talk about it in a neutral way? Absolutely. I completely believe that. But like the problem that you have with places like Christian universities in this country is that that bias is going to be so heavy, not only because the professors already believe them, but already the students are already on that kind of side of things, that you're going to get there. Eventually some skewing is going to happen. I'm not saying that all Christian universities are bad and you shouldn't listen to their perspective, but it should be suspect on some level. I mean, it just has to happen. And yeah, I mean, I suppose that's true for, a secular person as well. Like I said, I think that I would be inherently biased to some degree. I think I would try my best to minimize it, but I would rather it be a secular person coming from an outside from looking at.
When you talk about the qualifications, I mean, I don't think that it would be very practical to say, like, for example, like a Christian could not teach about that. But have you seen the books from McGraw-Hill where they'll have like an expert opinion from like two communities, and then you read an essay from each community? So you could maybe like when looking into Christianity, you could get an expert opinion from a clergyman as one essay, and then another essay as like an expert opinion from an atheist, and people could kind of like get their different ideas from different parts of the Bible and hear like combating opinions on different parts of the Bible, and then kind of inform themselves and make their own decision about what to think.
Yeah, I think
I wouldn't be opposed to that either.
Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to that. I guess, now that I'm thinking about it, I think here's where I make the distinction. I actually wouldn't have a problem with somebody teaching theology. If a priest wants to teach about theology and what the systemic beliefs, like what that actually looks like, I'm actually okay with. I think what happens is when you talk about elements of historical narrative, in other words, the actual influence of that religion, what groups of people in that religion have done on the world, I think may cause some suspect. I think contributions to science and perspectives on science can also cause to be suspect in some cases, because you might have a creationist element in their occasion. Obviously, like I think people like I knew some folks at Baylor University who they got some messages leaked from some professors who didn't work in the biology department but worked in other departments, who admitted that they didn't believe in evolution, right? And that's, on an academic level, that's really concerning. And Baylor's not like a cheap school. It's a very expensive school. People are getting a very expensive education. Now, obviously, those people aren't teaching evolution, so maybe that doesn't actually matter on some level because, well, that's not their coursework. But there's a culture there, right? And it's like, I feel like you guys should all be on the same page when it comes to like that kind of science. I don't know. Maybe. What do you think, Jim?
It's hard to disagree with evolution. I feel. Well, the other thing I wanted to talk about was, I've talked to a few people, kind of like not on a show or anything, but just like face to face about this. Maybe go to a bar and talk to people, and I feel like the usefulness of the stories in different religions, and not even just the stories, but more of the archetypes and the characters are very beneficial, like to cognitive development and like interacting with culture and the world. I mean, like for example, like the story of Hercules was a story like I really enjoyed, and it like helped me with some things in my life. Or just it was just a great story, or Perseus, or I don't know, like Samson and Delilah, and,
I think you can
all these stories.
I think you can take a lot of benefit from reading the stories. I would even admit that there's some of the things in the Bible that I still think are like interesting and have an interesting moral thing behind them. It doesn't mean I necessarily believe the things all happened or that sort of thing, but multicultural readings from across the different religions and different stories and the archetypes, like what you were mentioning, like I think that being aware of those things and discussing those ideas that have come about through like human, like you said, cognition, like I think that there can be a lot of benefit from that without holding to a strong position on the ontology of where these stories come from. Is that kind of what you're saying? Like I think that there's a great value in understanding the stories and finding inspiration from them too.
That's definitely like the main theme, but what I'm trying to get at is that I will encounter people, and it typically is like an atheist person where I'll say, like I think the creator God is like a useful archetype. And the story is okay to teach children, but it's better to like put it in a context like this is a fiction. This is a fiction, right? And but to tell the story anyway, and they're like, no, that's a slippery slope, and they're going to end up in these like crazy communities, and you shouldn't teach them that at all, and in any context except just like stay away from it,
I'm sorry you've had that encounters.
I was gonna say I don't agree with that at all.
I don't agree with that either. Jim, I've just this week I was listening to some college lectures on the Bible, and I'm an atheist, and the reason I did this is because I'm fascinated by the text because of the implications of its mythos, because of the stories that it tells, how it does affect the cultural psyche, and how it ultimately influences theology and thus history itself. The influence of those ideas on our culture is fascinating to me. I was just listening to a lecture on the book of Job. The book of Job has been the basis for a lot of people's conceptions of the problem of evil and how to solve that. And when you have an idea of how to solve the problem of evil, in other words, why someone should be good or what is the cause of wrong in this world and how you should respond to that, that's a powerful thing. Stories are powerful. And I will, to give the polytheist community perspective as well. I have several friends in that. I think that they tend to emphasize that a lot. They tend to emphasize the mythos and the power of that in those communities. And I think that that's totally legitimate. And I'd love for more academic institutions to talk about the history of those ideas, but not as literal fact. In other words, talking about the history of the idea of sin versus saying you're a sinful person, those are two different things, right? Like and saying you should respond to this idea in a way that should personally, like, you know, I think, yeah. Mm-hmm.
In society.
Yeah, no.
Well, it's rarely very.
Well. Yeah. It's not useful. So a sin concept, I think, is ultimately harmful because it does say that you have to be redeemed through an external source, and that certain actions are bad, even though I don't personally think they're bad, and a lot of people wouldn't think they're bad because of, you know, you can talk about that all day. But yeah,
it's useful to. Our leg is killing us.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, there's one.
Oh, go ahead. You go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I was just gonna say that I'm very curious about like how far back these stories stretch. You know, like even like outside of the Bible, but just with the oldest stories that we have. And some of these stories, like some stories, they seem like they're like, for example, stories about catching a really big fish. You know, and you wonder, just kind of like it's a natural instinct to protect your eyes in a fight. Like it's a natural instinct to hear about catching a big fish and just, or I don't know, I mean, maybe not if you're a vegetarian, but, you know, like, you know, finding like this big treasure trove of something and just getting really like excited about that. And there are other things like that too, like with anthropomorphism. I probably said that wrong. If I could just like flip a switch in my head and turn that on, I'd probably do that like 5 times a day because it's such a.
Wait, what do you mean flip a
feeling to kind of? Yeah. Well, like
I'm confused. What do you mean flip a switch?
Are you talking about that? Like
do what?
To their toys. What's that?
Oh, okay, gotcha. You mean talking to animals?
Yeah.
As you would a person.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, or like just inanimate objects, just like. You know, if I could just lay in my room and like have a conversation with the ceiling, obviously that would be better than watching the paint dry.
I think that all the stories.
The only way to really experience that is to be like exhausted or really excited, like exercising a lot or getting into a trance or something. You know, outside of like a dream state, you're not going to really experience that.
Interesting. Okay.
But
so
I mean, obviously, why people meditate.
I think I get what you're saying. I think that like I can see a lot of appreciation for all the stories in our histories, and I think that it's like amazing to read them and to try to get inside the heads of these people who lived thousands of years before us, because you actually have a bit of a glimpse into the experience of what their life was like and what was important and how they were, you know, reasoning their way through the. I mean, a lot of them had a lot more dire circumstances than what we have. And I think that there's some really beautiful, like, so I'm an atheist, but I think there's a lot of beautiful mystical texts out there, exploring that idea of like having a mystical experience. I think and like from my perspective, I find it really fascinating kind of on a, on a personal level, but also like the science behind that too. And I think it's all really, really very, very cool. And I think that if you have that ability to take that kind of inspiration from these texts, I mean, like, I think that's great. I think that that's really cool that you can have that appreciation for these texts. And I don't think that I'm getting the impression anyway that you're not going to take these texts and then go try to control somebody else's life or their body or choices or anything like that based on how you feel about a text that you're reading. So I'm seeing it as like a very a good thing.
Yeah, and so I mean that's the other thing is like because why are people so cautious about, and like I can give you one or two quick examples. I'm trying to think of which one's best. Yesterday I was dealing with a child, and this child is older than most of the children I deal with as a teacher, and I'm dealing with special education, and I deal with a lot of ADD. And this kid he can't hold his focus for like 2 seconds. And everything I'm trying is not working. And I've tried talking to other people. His parents don't want to help. and I really, really like my students. So it's very emotional. And just talking about it, I want to tear up, and I could break down and cry just thinking about it, you know? And anytime like something like that comes up, or something like maybe all we need is more willpower. Like if I could get one thing from God, it would be like more willpower. If there were a God, that would be like the number one thing I would ask for, because my lack of willpower, I feel, is like the biggest limitation in my life, right? And anytime there's like some incredible concept like that, I want to write it down and I want to save it, and I want to be able to get in touch with it again. And I feel like, with respect to like your other caller, you know, when I hear people that are talking in these like really like, I don't know, kind of like obsessive ways, like he kept using lots of adverbs, I feel like it's kind of like a vow of silence, you know, or something, where they've made this promise to talk in like a very specific way, and they're trying to get in touch with some kind of feeling, maybe, you know. But I mean, where does it like cross the line from just getting in touch with your emotions to like becoming some kind of a madness?
It's interesting. You know, I, as a Christian, I did relate to a lot of the narratives told, because like Christians, you're supposed to do that. You're supposed to relate. If you're doubting the faith, you're supposed to go to the part about doubting Thomas, right? If you are really headstrong about the faith, you're supposed to point to Peter. You know, like there are these archetypes that are present in those narratives, and there's like, because ultimately there is an ideology that wants to be taught there, and that is that. Sorry, Jim, I couldn't hear you there. You broke up.
Oh. I would look at Thomas as like one of the best books of the Bible, so that really surprises me.
Oh, well, well, there is no book of Thomas, but there's the story of Thomas within the Gospels, right? Yeah, I'm talking about...
Dan, you're probably referring to like the Doubting Thomas, and Jim, you're probably referring to like the Gospel of Thomas.
Right, yeah. I'm talking about the archetype, the mythos archetype of the Doubting Thomas, because that's something that the church has adopted and like has used for things. It's like, you know, like there's utilitarian purpose to these mythos, but like also, Jim, like, did you know that there are churches dedicated to Q right now? Like Q, the, you know, conspiracy theory Q. Like there are people who are interlacing the narratives of Christianity with that of eschatology, with that of like the end times, with that of Q. Like that's happening right now too. And like I you know, that concerns me, because it's using this mythos, this structure that's already here in our country, which is Christianity, and that history there, and adding on people's own motivations to it and reinterpreting those narratives for their own ends. And that's the problem that we have with this. And that's why you have to be really careful. That's why, you know, like I would love it if people taught these things, but always in a historical context, always in an academic sense. I'm not comfortable with, I wouldn't be comfortable with a priest telling my kids about the Bible. I would be more comfortable with a professor doing it, just because there's just a removal there, right? There's just a bit of a removal there for, you know, motivations there. And like and when Erin's going to talk to her kids about Jesus, it's not going to be from the point of view that this is the savior of mankind and that you have to do whatever he says and follow that specific, you know, ideology. It's going to be from, well, there was this guy who lived a couple thousand years ago, and he said some stuff and did some stuff. You know, it's different. It's different. But.
Yeah, framing it more from like this is what Christianity is, and this is kind of where their beliefs are. This is kind of the common beliefs, and this is what Islam is, and what their kind of common beliefs are. And I'm not going to get all of it right, but like, yeah, from taking it from a step back. But.
Right. Anyway, Jim, we've got some other callers we got to get to, but I'm going to let you go. But thanks so much for your call. It was certainly an interesting one. I hope you have a good time.
Yeah, I feel like there's
Erin, you
dig into more.
were going to say something. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. No, I was going to say that call, it is really interesting, and I feel like there's more we could talk about. So maybe Jim, call back some other time too, because I feel like there's more we could talk about with that.
Yeah. You know, this topic is really interesting to me because I think Jim is correct in that atheists, at least in the communities I see, don't talk about it as much as I'd like to see. In fact, this is a big reason why Jordan Peterson is really popular, right? And Jordan Peterson is problematic as all hell, but people really like him because this is how he talks about Christianity. He talks about these meta narratives and these narratives that drive these cultural forces that have historically, like brought us to where we are today. Like there is a power in that. There is, like, human beings are ultimately narrative creatures. We view our lives in narratives. We view other people's lives in narratives. We build those stories, and that helps us navigate the world. Is it an entirely scientific process of knowing things? Is it the best way of knowing things? No, but it's one of the ways humans do stuff. It's just a function of us, and it's equally problematic as it is sometimes beautiful. But like, there is caution there, to be sure. But you know what, Erin? This is our last live show of the year, and we still got some callers, and let's just get to everybody. Today, what do you think? Let's just do it. You know what? Let's just do it. I think we'll call that our Christmas gift to you at home. Not really at home. I guess it's to the callers mostly, but we'll go ahead and talk to Adam. Adam, who's calling in from Florida. Adam, you're live on Truth Wanted. What's up? Hello, Adam. You are live on Truth Wanted. Can you hear us?
I got you now. Thank you for taking my call. I just wanted to quickly ask you guys if what you thought was the meaning of life to each of you, if you can kind of respond to that.
Oh, man.
Big deal.
If we could just quickly respond to the meaning of life, Erin, that'd be really great. What's your response to this question?
My response or Adam's response?
No, your response. What do you think?
My response. I've thought about this quite a bit. I do think that it's something that is a little different for each person. I think that, like, I feel like my purpose of life at this point is to try to learn as much as I can, experience as much as I can, and be a force for good, whether it's with my family or my kids, and leave the world better than I found it. I don't know. It kind of sounds too like a little cliche, but I want to leave a path of good things behind me. And I want to teach my kids to continue on with the curiosity, so that, like, everything just continues to get better, progress. I don't know. On my day-to-day purpose, because I think it's important to have like a bigger idea, and also my day-to-day purpose. Like, I get a lot of enjoyment and fulfillment out of learning new things every day. And I think that that's something that's kind of new to me since deconstructing my faith, like we had talked about earlier, Dan, like the sense of there's so much to learn. And I actually get like a real a joy, and like I feel very satisfied, and my purpose, like I feel like I found meaning when I learned something new frequently. and then being able to use those new things that I've learned in some sort of way, whether it's even just talking about it in a conversation or to learn a new skill. Like I feel like that's purpose. That's amazing. But it might be different for other people.
Yeah, it's so, this question is so interesting. At one point in my life, I would have said it was malformed, because it implies that there even is a purpose, and there may not. Like what would that even mean in a world where nature is all that exists, right? If you go that far in believing that. The best, I think, response I've seen to this was this philosopher named David Benatar. He has this book called The Human Predicament, and he talks about human purpose in sort of 3 different levels. So there's the universal purpose. In other words, man versus the universe. Does that exist? He says probably not. In the grand scheme of things, we don't really do a whole lot. We move some molecules around, and that's pretty much it, right? If we're talking about the grand universe as a whole. And then the next level he talks about is with mankind. And he says that some people can make that big difference. There's some people whose names like Martin Luther King Jr. or I don't know, Amelia Earhart, like they make a difference to mankind. We know who they are. They have that place in our history. And so they've found purpose in that sense. And then he talks about the third one, which is purpose on the local level. And he says that that's mostly what human beings can ultimately strive for. That's what most human beings have to contend with and live, because for the vast majority of human beings, well, they didn't have YouTube, they didn't have the internet, they just had like, you know, their village, and maybe they got to travel to some places. Maybe the lucky ones got to go out and do those sorts of things. But ultimately, most people have lived in the same place for their whole life, for most humans, like around some sort of area. And that's just a brute fact of humanity. That's just kind of stuff that we have to contend with. I'm gracious for the opportunity to be able to talk on platforms like this, and then, you know, actually talk to people from around the world and have a global connection with people that I otherwise would not have if it weren't for the technologies that we have right now, which is really cool. But I tend to find purpose in that. I think that's what gets me up in the morning, if that's what we're talking about, purpose. I love relating to people in a community and finding others that find this same things that I do to be interesting. And that's really all that I can hope to get. I think that's better than what most people have gotten for the vast majority of history. And I have to make my peace with that, because that's all I've got. It's really just a gift. That's all it ever was. It was never anything else. So that's what I think about when I think about purpose, is kind of that multi-layered view, because I don't think that there is at least a Christian God. And so that conception of reality just doesn't work with me anymore. Doesn't make any meaningful sense. So that's a very long answer to your very complicated question, Adam. I hope I covered it. What do you think?
Wow, guys, thank you. Those answers were great. Thank you for sharing that with us. That was it. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Awesome.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's one of the most human questions you can ask, really, right?
I remember being asked that before, and like, so like when I gave him my answer, it's because I think that's the answer that I've come up with anyway, because it's like that is actually like why I get out of bed, because I've got things to do, things to experience, people's lives to affect, kids to teach, and, you know, community to be a part of. And like it doesn't need to be ultimately significant on a cosmic level. Like that's enough for me.
Yeah. It's like, you know, if every other human being or every other life form I could communicate with, and I'm not counting like AIs at this point. I don't know. We're not going there.
Different conversation, Dan.
if there were no people on Earth and it was just me, I would find that to be a very sad thing. I think that would give me trouble. I think that would be the biggest blow you could deal to me in my psyche, because I am definitely a social person. I'm definitely someone who finds a lot of meaningful experiences through doing stuff with other people, not just with myself. So that would be hard. But maybe introverts out there wouldn't mind that. Maybe they'd find that.
I could probably handle it for a few weeks, you know?
Yeah. I
am actually quite introverted most of the time.
That's interesting. I wouldn't have guessed that about you. Well, maybe.
You know, I'm like it's a little bit of both. This has been really, really great doing stuff online and doing activism, because it's brought another side of me out. But I'm like an extroverted homebody.
Extroverted homebody. You're a hobby extrovert.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I plan for it, and then I recover for a day.
That's funny. Okay, so we got one more call here for tonight, and it's Colson. Colson from Texas is calling in, wants to talk to us. Colson, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing okay, Dan. Hi, Erin.
Hi, Colson.
Yeah, so basically, I just wanted to talk about the topic you guys were talking about earlier, about sort of your family and how to deal with, you know, being an atheist around your family. And for me, it's kind of a weird situation. Okay, it's weird for everyone, right? But my mom is the only one who knows, as far as I know, that I'm an atheist. And I have this, I don't know, I have this burning like desire to tell everyone at all times that I don't want anyone to think that I'm religious when I'm not. But at the same time, like when I told my mom, like one of the first things she said was, don't tell Nana. And I understood that very well. Like how could I do that to Nana? How could I break her heart?
Yeah.
But so now it's like this situation where I feel like my mom and I are teaming up to lie to my family, and it's a weird dynamic. And
Colson, that's so funny. I literally had the same conversation. My mother did the exact same thing. Said I couldn't talk about it with grandma and grandpa. wasn't a thing. Isn't that interesting?
How could we? I mean, it would just break her heart, you know?
Right. It's like your identity somehow is harmful to another person because you're their progeny and they're supposed to be proud of you and be able to talk about you. Like my grandma loves, well, she just passed away recently, but I mean, she always bragged about me to her friends. It seemed like she was always talking about me, according to my mom. And this is one side that couldn't be talked about because it would bring shame to the family, which is such an interesting thing. And it like, what a sociological reason to keep believing, right? What an absolute, well, a real psychological like threat to someone's belief is, oh, well, you're gonna disappoint literally everybody you know if you have a difference of opinion. Like, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But I can definitely relate. And Erin can relate too, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm just like, I'm feeling for you. That is tough. And it's really tough knowing that, like, you want to find, you know, people that are safe to talk to, but you inadvertently pull them into this thing. Like you said, you feel like you're kind of working together to try to keep this under wraps now. And again, that's like sociological thing. I don't know how to change it either. But yeah, when you start to tell people that you have had such a huge shift in your belief system, the people that you tell are almost forced to keep a secret for you, and that's so weird.
Yeah. Sorry, I feel like I'm talking a lot here, but like I got this piercing like maybe 2 months ago now, 3 months ago. I know it was a little bit back. And when my mother saw it, she hated it. And back when my grandmother was alive, my mother was like, oh, well, you can't let your grandparents see that. You know, that's like one of the things like, what? I made this decision for myself. This is just me. I really like it. But like, it's literally the same level, right? Where it's just like, oh, this ideological tenet that you hold, or this belief about reality that you hold, you can't share that in the same way you can't share this this piercing, because they're both taboos. Like, they're just both things that can't be shared. And you have to pretend like don't exist. And how much of human society has existed on doing that, just creating those taboos and upholding them.
And how much of it is like religious differences, or just like the fact that each generation that like thinks that the young ones are just doing all these awful things.
Yeah.
Like that. But I know it's more than that. I know that it's more when you have somebody who genuinely thinks that you're going to suffer.
Yeah.
Especially if they believe in any kind of afterlife that's
but
any torment like that. It's horrifying to think about telling somebody that too, because even though you don't believe it anymore, knowing that you're going to put them through psychological pain, that's the tough part. And I think that's part of the reason why it took me so long, or that's part of what kept me keeping that kind of secret for so long, was that I knew that that was what their religion has taught them to think of me. As soon as they hear those words, like as soon as they find out, they're gonna have pain inflicted on them, and it's so hard.
Yeah, at that point, it ultimately reveals that Christianity isn't about the logical conclusions of one's faith. It's a performance. It becomes a social performance that you have to keep up with these norms in order to be in good graces, not of God, but of your family, and of the people you care about. Isn't that interesting? Like, you know, I'm glad I kept this piercing in, and other people see it, because I found that it was an expression of myself and a representation of me, and ultimately it became something that I was proud of. And I think people should do the same thing with their non-belief, that they should be proud to be who they are, and that they shouldn't feel like that they have to be closeted. Obviously, the three of us, at least, probably have all had to do the performances sometimes, you know, the song and dance of maybe going to church.
But ultimately, I feel like, Dan, you took that, like your piercing, and it is an example of how you are carving out that space for yourself to be who you are, and to you know, do the thing that is just for you, and has nothing to do with other people are thinking about, or how they're going to see the situation. And like for some people, they can take big chunks at a time. They can carve out a big space for themselves quickly. Other people, it's small things. And for some people, it's just having one person that knows, you know, where you're at. But I think just the kind of working on that and taking into account who it is that's going to be hearing the information. But there's no easy way to do it. I have not figured anything out.
Yeah. Individuality has never been a value of Christianity. Almost never ever, except maybe in the Christian mystic tradition. But outside of that, you're called to be a sheep, literally called to be a sheep, right? Like you're supposed to follow. And piercings and tattoos and other kinds of stuff. That's signs of individuality. That's signs of not being of, the herd and of everybody else. And that's a threat. That's a threat to the order, to like the hierarchy that the religion is supposed to bring. And because it does come down to control at some point at the end of the day, right? Which is scary and sad to think about. And in today's terms, it means going to Christmas, church service when you don't want to. Sometimes for some people, sometimes it means life or death situations. But I'm glad that I think Gen Z, gets into a lot of stuff that I don't believe in. They're real big on astrology and all kinds of stuff right now. But I will say they are more open to other people's expressions of stuff. I think that's one generational shift that we're seeing, and hopefully these kinds of things of self-expression won't be as much of a problem in coming years. And maybe we just have to grit our teeth and bear it out so that the next generation has a better time than we do. I don't know. That gives me solace, at least. But Colson, I'm in the same boat as you. I don't know. It's hard.
I think this year I'll just commit to not saying any prayers if I'm asked to bless the food.
Yeah.
Maybe one year I'll, wear my AXP T-shirt to dinner, my Truth Wanted T-shirt. But
hell yeah,
I think I'll just
Truth
keep
Wanted.
Not telling Nana.
I vote for the Truth Wanted T-shirt.
Yeah, I mean you do you, boo boo.
Of course.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
But I will say anybody that says no, I'm actually not going to respect this tradition because it's a violation of my self-expression. I have respect for that position as well. I've done that before.
Absolutely.
But I've also done the performance. Like it's kind of been a mix for me. So I don't know what's best, but I do think everybody has a right to do their own thing, right? So there you go. Colson, do you have anything else you want to ask before we wrap up the last live show of the year?
No, that's it. Thanks for taking my call.
All right. Well, thank you, Colson. And thank you to everybody who watches Truth Wanted. You guys are awesome. Now, if you're watching this live, we're not going away just yet. We're going to be in the after show on Discord for a bit, so you can talk to me and Erin and get to know us a little bit more, get to hang out with us before we wrap things up. But folks, this is the last live show of the year. Like I said at the beginning, we are going to have some pre-recorded fun stuff. I got to say, I recorded everything already on my end, and it's going to be really cool this year. No Golden Pico Awards. I'll say this right now. No Golden Pico Awards. We are doing some other fun things that I have not been given permission to say, so I won't, but to look forward to it. Erin knows what's up. It's going to be cool. It's going to be really, really fun. I'm just going to go out and kind of do our little outro here. But Erin, is there anything else you wanted to say, before we wrap things up? If people want to find you, where they at, the drill.
Yeah, I mean, I'm here on Truth Wanted occasionally as a host.
Yeah, that's where I shouldn't do that because you also host the show, but we don't always host shows together, so it is fun. Huh?
But anywhere you can get a hold of Dan, you can probably get a hold of me too.
That's true. We do have the same email address, which is truth@atheist-community.org.
But otherwise, I'm around. You can find me if you want to hear more about the story that got me in trouble this year with my family. You can find it. But I wanted to say for everybody out there who is in an awkward space with their family or is facing Christmas in a different situation than what they expected they would, you're not alone. There are so many other people who feel exactly how you feel. They feel isolated maybe, or they feel awkward with their family. Just know that you're not alone. Reach out online, wherever you can to get the community and the support that you need. There are communities waiting for you, just sitting there waiting for you to come join in and share your story and get to know them. We are here. You can call us when when we're on. And you can stick around if you have nothing to do during your holidays. We do have some fun programs to keep you entertained, so stick around for that.
That's true. I'm going to go out of order a little bit just to dovetail off that in my little outro spiel here. But I should say, if you want to talk to other people, one of the good ways to do it is through the Facebook fan group, on the Truth Wanted Facebook fan group. It's a great way to talk to other people who like the show, who are interested in weird topics and all the other kinds of stuff that the other shows talk about too. So check that out if you haven't already. And of course, we're going to be in the ACA fan run Discord server afterwards too. So there's always people on that thing. So definitely check those out if you haven't already. But if you want to support this show, folks, if you want to keep seeing more Truth Wanteds next year, there's a couple different ways you can do that. First and foremost is that Patreon. Again, I think we have cycled through all of our current patrons right now for shout outs. So if you want to be the next person to get shouted out, please consider donating to patreon.com/truthwanted or tiny.cc/patreon-tw. It's a great way to support the show. You get that shout out. And a personal thanks to everybody who donates on there. You guys rock. Another way to support the show is by becoming a member on YouTube. You can hit that join button on there to do that. It's pretty cool. You got little emoticons of my face and also the Truth Wanted logo. You get access to all the fun stuff. And you can donate as well on YouTube. That goes directly to the ACA when you decide to donate through there. Another way to support us is through our store. We got some merchandise with the Truth Wanted swag on there. We got the hoodies. It's hoodie season again. I love saying that. I say it every time because it's true. We also still got the masks. We also got the shirts and all kinds of cool stuff. So check that out if you haven't already. You can contact us through email, truth@atheist-community.org. I said .com last week, by the way, and I got razzed for that. So that's really fun. But it is .org if you want to contact us. I'm on Twitter @ObjectivelyDan. And this show is a part of the AEN Podcast Network. There are a lot of other shows you can check out that are available on that channel on YouTube. But you can watch the show on YouTube. You can also find on Spotify, iTunes, wherever else you get your podcasts. Please like, subscribe, leave a review, comment. We like to see that engagement. And now, Erin, do you have any? Well, I want to know about your words of wisdom, but I'm not going to make the same mistake twice, which is forgetting to shout out the wonderful crew that helps make this show happen every single week. I can't believe I almost did it again, but I caught myself this time. Look at that. Look at that crew, Cam. Look at that crew. They're beautiful people, all of them. Great, great people, and they are awesome, and they help make the show happen every single week. So thank you, crew, for doing that. Now, Erin, I want to know, words of wisdom, final thoughts, any Christmas miracles, Christmas stories you want to share?
Probably not.
Okay, all right. Well, but I gave you the chance, but
we love you guys, everybody that is here, everybody that watches. I hope you all have a really, really great next couple of weeks, and we'll see you around in the new year.
Yes, we will see you around in the new year, and be sure to check out that fun extra pre-recorded stuff we have. I hope everyone has a happy holidays. And if you're gonna see your family, I hope you guys do well. So that is going to be it for this episode of Truth Wanted. Remember to always keep wanting the truth, and I'll see you next year.
Watch the nonprofits and join the hosts in the live chat, Sundays at 3 p.m. Central between the Atheist Experience and Talk Heathen. Visit tiny.cc/YTNP.